Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Today we have Ashleigh VanHouten, who is from Paleo Magazine and runs the Paleo Magazine radio podcast. Today we talk about, of course, some paleo information, but she's also tested a lot of products and supplements and things like that, so we talk about that. We talk about macros and training, and we dig into a lot of different things on becoming a better human. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around for this episode. All right, Ashleigh, I'm super pumped to have you on the Better Humanology podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jared. I'm very excited to be here. I like being the interviewee sometimes. I'm so used to asking the questions.
Yeah, it's very different, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of like it. A lot of people have a hard time because they're like, I have such a hard time, talking about my projects or myself or talking in general. And I'm like, that's not a problem I have. So I like being on both sides.
Yeah, it's I think I enjoy being on other people's podcasts better because it just takes a little bit of the pressure off. You can just kind of like, oh, what do you want to know? I can answer questions,
Yeah, I like it. I'm into it.
All right, well, we're going to get started with our challenges as we do every episode, and I'm going to throw those to you if you don't mind.
Sure.
How about a fitness challenge for everyone listening?
Okay, fitness challenge based on something I always am getting my friends to do when they're asking me how to get in better shape quickly. Burpees. Just do burpees. Like people want to do some complicated program and they want to do something sexy like muscle ups or deadlift 3 times their body weight. And, I'm into all that. Don't get me wrong. But I think sometimes people overthink it, right? And if they don't have the right equipment or they can't do A or B, they just kind of don't do anything at all. They get overwhelmed. So burpees are something, if you can move your body, you can do a burpee. And it's difficult for anybody. It's about the level of intensity that you put into it. So no matter how fit you are, you can benefit from doing them. And I mean, really, one of the best indicators of health and longevity for people as they get older is your ability to get up off the ground, right? So, I mean, that's a pretty important skill. It's a lot more useful than a muscle up, really. So, I mean, I guess I'd say after every workout that you do this week or every night while you're watching Netflix and kind of just sitting around, instead, do 50 burpees as fast as you can. Try to do them with, good form and don't hurt yourself and flop around, but do 50 burpees. You're going to get a good workout.
I think that's awesome for a lot of reasons. One, it's simple, not easy, which is something I like to say to my athletes all the time: simple, not easy.
Exactly.
And you're so right. People can get caught up in all these performance metrics and everything, but I think just doing something is going to be the important thing for a majority of people.
Absolutely. And I love things that give you like a good cardiovascular workout quickly. Like nobody, I've spent plenty of time on a treadmill because I've done some bodybuilding stuff in the past. And I know what that long intensity, slow kind of stuff is. And and that there's a place for that, I guess, sometimes too. But sometimes it's nice to do something for 2 or 3 minutes that just like totally exhausts you. It's awesome. And
like you said, super functional.
Yeah.
And I have that joking conversation with coaches all the time about, you said a burpee's more functional, more useful really than like a muscle up. And I like to joke with people and ask them, what's more functional, being able to snatch your body weight or do a bicep curl? It's because picking up your groceries and putting them on the kitchen counter is a bicep curl. When are you going to do a snatch in reality? It's just, but that's
I love it. I love any argument for bicep curls. I'm totally into that.
Yeah. It's just, I like to have fun with that. Well, I appreciate that. Sorry for going off on a tangent. How about a mental toughness challenge?
Okay, mental toughness. This is one I'm going to throw out there because I am currently working on it and have a hard time with it. So I know that other people must too. And that is working on batching and also reducing your screen time and specifically social media time. And this is tough for me because, part of it is my job involves social media, but that's also a total excuse. I spend lots of time wasting time on social media, and I think a lot of people do. So I like to try and challenge myself to have certain times during the day, maybe a half an hour in the morning, where I'm using it with a purpose. Like I'm going and doing the things I need to do, or reaching out to the people I need to reach out to and really doing it. And then maybe again for a half an hour at night, trying not to be looking at a screen 90 minutes before bed, which is so tough. And I know a lot of people, especially use, TV or social media as a way to kind of relax or turn off their brain, but that's not what it's doing, and there are real negative correlations between how much time you spend on social media and your happiness, right? It's just not to say that it's inherently negative, but it can absolutely be a strain and a stress and a negative thing in your life. At the very least, you're just kind of wasting time after a certain point. Like I don't think anybody sits in their deathbed and says, I wish I'd spent more time looking at Instagram, right? So I think that people would be a lot better off and a lot healthier if we could find ways to schedule that and be a little bit tougher on it, and rather than having it sort of be a low level part of our life all the time. It's like this instinctive thing. Your phone's right there and you got to just be looking at it. And the more time I spend away from it, the more I realize you're really not missing out on much, right? I mean, it's like I said, it's useful, but its uses diminish after a certain point. So I guess long story short, my challenge would be to really set some kind of strict goals for yourself in terms of how much time you're spending on screens. And when you are spending time looking at social media or watching something or whatever, make sure that there's a purpose behind it, that you're really getting something out of it rather than just wasting your hours.
I love that. And that's a lot of people, I think, I have on the podcast, and a lot of people have been kind of hovering around ideas like that. Not exactly what you said, but whether it's limiting screen time or phone usage or social media. Why do you think that is?
Why more people are wanting to do it?
Well, because I bring a lot of experts like yourself onto the podcast, and it just seems like a lot of people are pushed in that direction. Do you think that we're finally like at our limit, or we're just kind of realizing like, it was new at first, it's been new maybe for a decade, I guess, new to the human race, should I say. Yeah. And then like, you think we're just kind of catching on to like, this might not be the best situation for us.
Yeah, I mean, I do think people hit a saturation point, and I think I live in New York, and I'm walking down the street, and you're like, you have to dodge the people who are looking down at their phones and smashing into each other. And but also, I think because we have all these tools at our disposal, and sometimes we just use them all without taking the time to figure out, like, do we need them? Is it helping our cause? Is it helping what we're trying to accomplish at all? And again, it's, we're human beings. We are drawn to shiny, flashy things, and we're drawn to pictures of butts and good food. So you're gonna scroll and waste time. Like that's just what you're gonna do. So I think having some discipline around it, just like anything else in life, discipline equals freedom, right? So it's the same with food. Like if I have a kitchen stocked with junk, I'm gonna keep going in there. If I have unlimited access to my social media feed, I'm gonna be wasting a lot of time there too. So setting some healthy boundaries, I think, is just better for everybody.
I agree. And one thing that helped me, I tried to stay off of Facebook a lot. And then a little over a year ago, maybe longer, I started a Facebook group for my community, a lot of my athletes and everything. And it's been great. I absolutely love our Facebook community. But then it was like you said, like it can be an excuse. You're like, no, this is for my work, right? So you're on social media for your work. But then I installed this because I'm primarily on my desktop, rarely on my phone during the day. And it's called Newsfeed Eradicator. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
So it's and this might be helpful for anyone listening who wants to take on your challenges. It's a Google Chrome extension, but when you log in to Facebook, it eliminates your newsfeed. So like right in the center of the screen where you're supposed to see your, it just gives you a quote, and it'll be like a quote from Fight Club that says like, your life is ending 1 minute at a time, and it's something that just like reminds you like, oh crap, maybe I should be doing something else.
I love it.
So that's a good one people might be able to use out there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. I like that idea.
All right. So how about a book recommendation?
Okay, book recommendation. I guess the book that I've recommended the most the last year or so is probably Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan. It's kind of paleo too, which relates to my work, but in that it's discussing evolutionary psychology and some of the biases around what we consider quote unquote normal human sexuality based on, modern culture and religion and all these things. But it gets into biology and sociology and anthropology, talking about the evolution of monogamy basically in humans. So, the book doesn't take a particular position or, moral stance on it, but it does kind of talk about the difference between hunter-gatherer groups and their relationships and how different they were versus after agriculture led to higher population density and larger groups. And it really kind of digs deep into it. It's just a really interesting look at human behavior, I think, at the highest level. So, and it's very readable, really interesting. So yeah, I've given that book to a lot of people.
And what's your favorite part about it? Is it primarily that high level view of humans?
I mean, I think I guess I've always been, both my parents are psychologists. So I there's something about like learning how people operate and how they think and what makes them tick that I find very interesting. And I read another book that someone I just recently interviewed for my own podcast, called Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History. It's a guy named Bill Shutt, and it was another sort of anthropological, sociological look at, again, human and animal behavior, but cannibalism sort of throughout history and across cultures. And I like books like that they're provocative, right? They're about like sex and eating and all that, like the stuff that's interesting to people, but it's not written in a way to just kind of shock and provoke you. It's just like showing human behavior in all of its complexity and like how much more there is, under the surface of how we act and the things that we say. So I just think it's interesting.
I think that is very interesting. I recently finished a book, Lessons of History by William Durant, and he kind of goes over just I think you might enjoy it. It's just like this broad history of human behavior. And a big thing that he points out is, where we're at now, where like everyone is super like, for the most part, everyone is following rules and like societal norms and all this stuff. Like that's been such a flash, like just like such a flash in the pan compared to human history. Yeah. That a lot of this stuff is still new to us. And I think that's pretty interesting. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to add that one to my list too. I'm always trying to go back and forth between fiction and nonfiction because I am like a really, really avid reader. I try to read like a book a week, and generally I prefer fiction. I read it the same way people watch Netflix, like as an escape. I just love to read. But as I've gotten older and become an adult, I'm trying to read more nonfiction and really trying to learn some things too. So I'm always kind of going back and forth.
Oh, that's great. So how about you give us some background on who you are and what you're doing these days?
Cool. Yeah, I guess I'll talk about that part so you can decide whether you want to listen to any of my recommendations or any of the things I'm saying. So basically the job description, I'm an editor, I'm a writer, I'm a podcast host. I write for Paleo Magazine primarily, but a couple other freelance jobs as well. And I'm the host of the Paleo Magazine radio podcast for about a year now, which has been really, really fun. So I'm pretty deeply entrenched in the health and fitness world. I'm also a Primal Blueprint certified expert with Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint program there. So I do some holistic lifestyle coaching as well. Basically my job is trying new products for the magazine. So I get to try all the cool like supplements and foods and like cool equipment and stuff, which I love. And I get to interview experts and smart people in health and wellness. So it's awesome. And I think I've learned over the past couple of years that I'm better as a generalist. I've taken a lot of courses and done a lot of reading, and I think I have lots to offer, but mostly I think my real skill isn't being like an authority on any one thing. It's more about mixing sort of my passion for learning and experimentation and gathering information in health and fitness and my skill at kind of synthesizing that information and communicating it in a way that I hope is helpful and entertaining to people. My academic background is communications and marketing and stuff. So I've got the kind of the interest in the health and fitness and then the skill in the communicating, and I'm trying to mix those together, right? So I basically kind of act as the conduit between like the real experts, the real smart people, and everyone out there who can benefit from them, basically. So yeah, that's my job, and I feel very fortunate and grateful to do it.
Let's dive into it a little bit. It sounds like a really awesome job. Some similarities. I understand some of that in what you do. How long have you been a writer?
So, I mean, I like to think that I've been a writer since I was a kid. Like I was writing, when I was in elementary school, I'd write. It's funny because we're right around Halloween now, and I'd write like scary stories and like invite my friends over and tell them, and they'd all like freak out and not sleep that night, which I thought I was always super impressed by when I like really got to people and told a story that was good enough that it like scared them, which maybe isn't the nicest thing in the world when you're 9 years old. But anyway, I mean, and I remember my stepdad asking me when I was a kid, like really a kid, saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And instead of saying whatever, fireman or whatever I wanted to be, I wanted to be an author. I always wanted to write. And I still haven't done written the next great American novel or anything yet. But the fact that I can write for a living, I'm pretty happy about that. So, like I said, like my school, I did my undergrad and my master's degree in marketing communications, and I've dabbled in some corporate jobs in those fields. And most people who are in those kind of worlds, they go from like journalism to communications and marketing because there's more money in the latter. And I'm one of the few people who went the other way. But as we all learn at some point or another, money isn't everything. And I think that the lifestyle that I'm able to have doing the sort of freelance and different types of work that I do and the perks that come with it has been it's been really awesome. So yeah, I've kind of always been a writer and a communicator.
And how long have you been podcasting?
So the podcast has only been a year, which, it was really cool. The old host, he was there for a few years. He moved on to something else. And at this point, I'd been working for Paleo Magazine for about 4 or 5 years. And they asked me to be the host, and I was all over it. I thought it was cool. They used to have a male host, and I think they wanted to kind of get a woman's voice in there. I think we have slightly more women listeners than men. So it's cool to kind of get a fresh perspective in there. And I've always really loved, I think similar to you, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, like you're just really genuinely interested in people and where they come from and what's going on in their heads, right? So having that genuine curiosity helps when you are an interviewer for a living. And it's also selfish because I get to reach out and pick out people that I think are smart and interesting and have something to offer, and I get to talk to them and learn from them. It's amazing. And then of course I get to pass that along to other people. But I mean, really, like I'm kind of picking people that I want to talk to, Yeah,
and I think that's really important in podcasting in general. I think a lot of people, it's so easy to start a podcast these days that, a lot of people might see the success of others in podcasting and think that they want to do it and go for it. Like if anyone listening thinks that they want to start a podcast, I fully encourage giving it a try. But what you just said about having that attitude of like, I'm so fortunate to be able to do this and talk to people. And because like you right now, I have you for at least an hour, right? And I get to ask you all the questions I want, and I get to learn and take notes, and this will be in my notebook forever, and I can go back on it, reflect on it, and all this stuff. It's just, I view podcasting as such an amazing opportunity that really helps my own personal development and growth. I think it's so much fun.
Absolutely. And that's another part of my job too, with the sort of the product reviewing for Paleo Magazine, and then my own personal kind of passions in trying different things. Like it's that self-experimentation or biohacking, if you will, to a certain extent. I know some people don't necessarily like that term, but a willingness to try new things and experiment with new things in an effort to be a better version of yourself. That's something that I've always really been into. And it started mostly with athletic pursuits. I'm not like, the most athletic person in the world, but I've always been into it. And I've always been definitely a gym rat. Like I was in the gym doing bicep curls when I was 16 before chicks were doing that stuff. And I've always loved doing that. So, and I've played with CrossFit and powerlifting and bodybuilding, I'm pretty good at that. I'm still debating whether I want to get back into that or not. It's the dieting part that's tough. Jiu-jitsu, boxing. Like I love to be learning new skills and trying new stuff. And I think that that's what you have to keep doing that, especially as you get older. Like the second you slow down and think I know enough, or I've learned enough, or I'm tired and I don't want to, that's when you're dying. So.
Oh yeah. That's that would be a scary place to be, but I know a lot of people have gotten to that place. Hopefully none of them are listening.
I mean, things happen in life. Like it's not always easy. And I think it's funny because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine just recently about this, but there's so much to be said for inertia. Like it's so much harder to start moving than to keep moving, So every day, and that's why turning things like working out or journaling, if that's what you're into, or whatever, those things, like making them less of a choice and more of a part of your day, that it happens no matter what, you don't have a choice. That's what keeps the inertia going. So I love to work out, so it makes it easy for me. I never think like, oh God, I got to go to the gym and sweat and be in pain. Like I love that. So it's easier said than done, but I love it because I've been making it a part of my life for a decade and a half. So it's not a choice. It's not something I have to like ponder and have decision fatigue every day. What should I do? Should I go out? I have to put on my gym clothes and then I have to shower and I'm tired and this and that. No, I just go to the gym every day because that's what I do. And I always feel better for doing it. So, yeah.
And I'm the same way. I don't have I love going to the gym. I can't even like imagine a part of me that's like, doesn't want to do it. Do you think that's because you and I have both been doing it for so long? It's just like so ingrained, like both of us well over a decade into fitness on the regular. Do you think that that's what it takes to just finally like your mind's like, no, this is cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people are going to be more into it than others because we're all different and we all have different sort of genetic or whatever makeup that's going to push us in one direction or another. Just like some people are going to be more into music than others, or some people are going to be more into, science than others, whatever. Like some people are going to be a little bit predestined to being like meatheads or like gym people. With that said, I think everyone can get their own version of that and can at least find some kind of movement practice that they enjoy and that they like and that helps make them healthier, more functional people. So I have lots of friends who are never, ever going to come into the gym and bench press with me, ever. They're never going to do a CrossFit workout. They never want to roll around on the ground and get choked out in a jiu-jitsu class. That's never going to be their jam. But they can find some kind of yoga practice, or they can, do outdoor circuit workouts, or everybody can find their thing that they like. And I think everyone should try to do that. I think that it's not right to say like, oh, well, I'm just not a gym person, or I'm never going to be into like this intense stuff that I see at the CrossFit Games, so I'm just going to give up and be lazy. Everyone can find ways to move their body and feel better. And I just know how much of a natural like antidepressant and like mood enhancer it is in like every aspect of your life. And that's why I feel so strongly about people finding what works for them, because I mean, it really is an antidepressant, and it really does. I mean, it makes you feel more attractive. It makes you feel stronger and more capable. It boosts your immune system. I mean, you got to just find a way to move your body and enjoy it.
Now, tell me a little bit more about Paleo Magazine.
Okay, well, it's the best magazine in the world, Paleo Magazine. It's so I guess it's been around, I want to say, since maybe 2007 or 2009. I've been working for the magazine for about 5 or 6 years now, and essentially it is a health and wellness magazine. It's got a bunch of recipes every issue, which are amazing. And that's, I think, the biggest draw for people. They like the recipes. But there's every issue, there are articles about the latest in health studies and wellness studies and nutrition. And obviously there's this paleo ancestral health viewpoint that we're coming from. It's not like a super dogmatic thing. I think we've got that name because it's a recognizable term that people understand. But if the title of the magazine just said like health magazine, like no one would really know the difference. we're talking about whole, real, healthy foods and nourishing your body and how to move to improve your health. And it covers like a whole wide range of it gets pretty scientific sometimes too, but also kind of entertaining. I mean, I read it cover to cover, really. And I mean, I wouldn't say that if I didn't. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good magazine, and like we've got the podcast that's attached to it now that we get to kind of explore even further. Yeah, that's it.
And when did you kind of discover? I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty diverse athletic background and health in general. When did you kind of just stumble on, let's just say, the paleo scene?
Yeah, so I guess I've been kind of dealing with paleo since around that same time, like since probably around 2009. And it's a similar story that everybody kind of gets into. I got into CrossFit and I started getting really into CrossFit, and CrossFitters at that time back then were really into the zone dieting, which is like sort of basically like macros, which is now this new, like if it fits your macros thing, which is like a whole other thing I could talk about for a while. But anyway, so the zone thing was a thing. And then people started talking about this paleo, which it just always made sense to me. Like, I know that people want to say that things like this are a fad or that they're like cultish because, oh, you can't eat gluten. Like, that's monstrous. Why would you ever, whatever. It's just common sense. It's just eat food that comes from nature and try not to eat stuff that's processed and full of chemicals and stuff you don't recognize. And at the end of the day, I have friends who are vegetarian, believe it or not. It's hard for me, but I do. But I mean, you can eat whatever you want. If you want to be keto, if you want to fast 3 days out of the week, if you want to be a vegetarian, you can do all those things. But I think there is kind of a scientific basis for, as animals, here is how we're supposed to be eating. And there is some room for flexibility there. Like, some people will eat white potatoes and rice, and some people can't eat nightshades and whatever. But we are supposed to be eating animal protein. We are supposed to be eating vegetables and fat. And we aren't supposed to be eating like Twinkies and Coke every day. So that stuff just always made sense to me. So when I started learning about it and reading these books and listening to the Rob Wolf podcast and Art Devaney and all of these people, I was just like, this just makes sense to me. And I have always done better. I've always been drawn to, I'm a meat eater. Like, I like my rare steaks and I like, fish and seafood and all that stuff. I've always been like a big protein person anyway. So it wasn't really a tough transition for me. I do have like a major sweet tooth, which I will probably deal with for the rest of my life. But the idea of cutting out bread and pasta and stuff like that kind of never really mess with me too bad. So, and I've experimented with a lot of different things, like a little bit of fasting with the keto thing. And I think ultimately it's just finding, again, what works for you personally, not getting caught up in rules and judging what other people are doing, but just looking at it from a common sense biological framework and being like, what makes sense as human animals? What should we be eating? And then go from there.
Yeah, I think getting too dogmatic in any dietary belief, I don't even know what to call them any day. Religion, sometimes it depends on who you're talking to. I think can get overwhelming because the majority of what the world needs is just basic nutrition principles. I'm definitely way more in line with you and paleo and animal protein and vegetables and all of that stuff. But I can see it getting out of control. So that's why oftentimes it seems like I don't have a very strong stance on nutrition, and it's just because I think I'm definitely lean more in the paleo realm, but I just think that to make a bigger impact, we just need to get some very basic information out there. A lot of what you were just saying. What are your thoughts on the battles that can happen between the vegans and paleo and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, people do want to focus on the details and the rules because people like to point fingers at other people because it takes the pressure off maybe their own challenges or struggles and things that they're dealing with. But you're right. Like, people, they'll want to deal with like white potato versus sweet potato when it's like, let's just maybe try potatoes instead of like Wonder Bread. You know what I mean? So I completely agree with you that people just need to like take a step back and try not to stress about it or judge other people. Kind of stay in your lane, figure out what works for you and what makes sense. But yeah, people just kind of like to point at other people. Like I joke too, because of the CrossFit bodybuilding thing, I've like transferred from one to the other. And as I've done that, I realize that there's like some kind of interesting animosity between those two groups where they both make fun of each other for either not being functional or not being like actually strong or being overly concerned with aesthetics. And I'm like, dude, I have done both of these things, and I can say that you guys are much more alike than you are different. You all want to look good naked. You all want to show off and be strong. You all like to sweat and work hard. So get over it. Some of you like bicep curls more. Some of you like snatches more, but you're all basically the same thing. So just don't worry about it. I think, the same with like keto and paleo and even vegetarians, people just want to be healthy and learn and figure out what's best. And I think that if we can keep that mindset and get rid of the finger pointing and the hard and fast rules, then we're cooking with gas, I think.
Yeah, and I think in the fitness space, that's also another funny one. People, I don't know. I guess people just have their own little niches, and they they want to argue about different things. But ultimately, there can't be a wrong in fitness, right? Because they're your goals, and then whatever you need to do to achieve those goals is like the ultimate answer to that question.
Right.
Unless health is your goal, then don't be a power lifter. But
yeah, right.
Hopefully, hopefully I didn't take any shots there at anybody. But I want to know more about these product testing that you do for the magazine, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a sweet gig. This was probably about 2 years ago. Again, I think it's just being at the right place at the right time, because they're the chief sort of product reviewer for Paleo Magazine, was moving or doing something and kind of couldn't take on the job anymore. And so I took it on in addition to the other writing projects that I have. And basically, we have a section in the magazine every issue with new products that either are quote unquote paleo, so they're, paleo based food products or whatever, or they're just sort of maybe natural supplements or workout stuff or books or whatever, things that we think our readers would be interested in and benefit from. So I do a little bit of research myself, like reaching out to companies, and that's when I'm doing spending my time on Instagram. But and then I'm attending events. Like I was just at the Bulletproof conference. We've got a conference. We'll get into that. I'll talk about that in a bit. But being in places where these health and fitness people congregate, and that's part of the thing that I love to do with work is seeking out stuff and finding cool new things and then telling people about it. Like I really enjoy that stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I'm getting it's like the dream job for someone like me, because I'm getting like grass-fed beef sent to my house. I'm getting
awesome.
Collagen, protein, and mushroom coffee, and like everything awesome that you can imagine for someone who's like a meathead and into this stuff. I love it. And yeah, I get to learn about a lot of really cool, like genuine people that are starting up these companies that are really doing it to help people, and just seeing kind of how creative people are getting with it. Yeah, it's really fun.
Give me one of your favorite products that you've tested.
Oh man, so many. I mean, I'm really, really big on collagen. This is like I could do like a whole monologue about this on its own. Collagen protein and collagen peptides. It's like a powdered, it's basically like, for people who don't know, it's a protein, but it's made up of amino acids that are basically like the building blocks for all of our like our skin, our hair, our nails, our digestive system, our tendons, our ligaments, all that stuff. And it's basically a really clean protein source. It's sourced from like grass-fed beef or fish, and it's flavorless. It mixes into whatever, and it's a clean protein source that if you use it regularly, I mean, when I first started doing it, like my nails grew like Wolverine. Like I had like these long, thick nails that like didn't break. My hair was thicker. My skin was better. My digestion got better. I tell everybody I know who is like looking for either a new protein or looking for something to kind of just like level up their like health a little bit. I'm like, get on the collagen, guys. Just get on it. And there are a bunch of companies that are coming out with really good quality. So Vital Proteins, I love that company. They should be paying me. I should be an ambassador for how many people I'm telling, like, buy this product. But they have a whole range of products. Like they've got some flavored collagens that you can like drink as like pre-workouts, and then they've got gelatin that you can use for cooking and baking. tons and tons of products, but their stuff's really good quality. Who else has Natural Force has a marine collagen powder if you don't want to use beef products. That's really good. So collagen is probably one of my favorites right now.
Yeah, I think I've been on collagen. I just started taking it probably about 2 months ago, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I've been doing actually, my wife wanted me to order Vital Proteins the next time around, but we've been taking Bulletproof, Dave Asprey's brand, and it's it's very affordable. Like most collagen, there are some proteins out there that can be kind of expensive, but I found especially when you're trying to get like the cleanest supplement possible, right? They can be a little bit more expensive, but collagen always seems to be super affordable, which is awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I actually find depending on who you're looking at, it can be kind of expensive, but it's all relative. It's like, what are you willing to invest in, right? I mean, I have tried a lot of products over the last few years, whether they're nootropics or protein or pre-workouts or whatever. And some of it I think is good. Some of it isn't. Some of it might be complete placebo effect. Some things work for some people and not for others, but I have really, really found good quality collagen to be so effective and so good for your health that to me, it's worth whatever the price is because it's a product that works. So
let's talk about macros a little bit. And I just want to know, because I caught something when we were talking, you're like macros. I want to just get your opinion.
I roll in my voice.
Yeah,
you talking about macros.
yeah. Let's get into it a little bit. I just want to know your take.
I mean,
coming from the bodybuilding world, I thought that you'd be a little bit more into macros.
I'm a little bit unique from the bodybuilding community in that, so I always had a coach. I've competed 3 times and I did pretty well. I competed, I came first in a local show. I came second this was in Canada, in a provincial show in the biggest province in the country. And then I went straight into a natural show where I placed top 6. So I did for 3 shows in a row. I had a pretty good run. And I competed in the natural stream, not interested in the intense use of drugs that is very pervasive in the bodybuilding world. But my coach was she was an IFBB pro, figure pro. I competed in figure, by the way, which is important for someone with an ego like me to note that it is not bikini and it's not bodybuilding. It's basically figure. I like to describe as basically like a CrossFitter who went on a diet for a month or 2, very, very athletic looking, feminine, not sort of over the top, but not kind of just skinny either. Definitely muscular build. Anyway, my coach was a very reasonable, had a very reasonable and healthy approach, and she basically didn't give me macros. She kind of just told me what to eat, and I just followed it. I watch other people in the bodybuilding world, and they're like, "Oh, I'm eating my 40 grams of oatmeal," and I have no clue what that means. I don't know. I just know that I know what foods worked for me. I know that personally, I tend to do better when I'm trying to lose fat. I do better with many small meals, that traditional bodybuilding style of a number of small meals. I just enjoy that because I like to eat so much that it makes me sad when I eat a meal and then I can't eat again for 4 or 5 hours. That just makes me sad. So knowing that I can kind of always keep eating, I like it. And it was a very just gradual, this is what you're eating. And then next week you're going to eat just a tiny bit less. And next week you're going to eat a tiny bit less. But it really wasn't super scientific. And I liked that because bodybuilding prep can be very monotonous and tedious, and it can be tiring, and it's hard. And I don't, on top of everything else I'm doing, want to be obsessing over macros. So, and I know that works for some people, and I've actually experimented a little bit with it because I don't like to shit all over something. Sorry if I can't say that word, but I don't like to do that before I try it, right? So I don't want to say macros are dumb without actually doing it. So I've spent some time with it, and I understand why it works because, again, for someone like me who I really love to eat, and I like to eat much more than my body size allows. So tracking macros definitely helped me see that, when I'm not paying attention, I can easily eat twice what someone my size and activity level should be eating. And that's just not a good thing long term if you're trying to maintain a healthy body composition. So I think it's good to use to check in with yourself, and if you have like a specific goal short term and you kind of want to be strict for a while, okay, but I just can't be that obsessive over anything, and I had friends who competed and they just were agonized over everything, and I'm like, that's not fun. Isn't this supposed to be fun? Like, aren't you supposed to be enjoying this and kind of like learning about your body instead of just like stressing out over your MyFitnessPal every 2 seconds? Like, I don't know. I guess it's just not really in my personality to be obsessive like that.
Actually, I have a very similar opinion on it. I do find it can be very effective, but if you're like brand new, I don't know, to clean eating or just dieting and fitness combination in general, I don't think that you should start with macros. I think you should have some sort of good dietary habits in place first, then worry about macros. And then also, I don't think that macros are sustainable for the long term. I like to recommend it if there's a very specific goal and we have a time frame in which we're working in to make sure that you meet your goals. And so I just like to get people's opinions. I think the macro world is a little bit scary right now, and I've talked about this on the podcast just because some of the recommendations, and I think we both can agree, especially since you're in the paleo world, is there's a big difference between health and weight loss. Just because you're losing weight does not mean you're being healthy. And I think that can be the problem with macros, because they can give you some 65% carbohydrate macro breakdown,
Big time.
and then cut out all fat and protein basically. And you might start losing some weight, because they restricted your calories so far, but it will not be worth it in the end.
That's what I've noticed with a lot of these macro counting, like the companies that are like on Instagram showing their before and after and come do a program with us. And it's totally like they're touting that, you'll be up to 400 grams of carbs a day and still have abs. And it's like, yeah, because you're eating 10 grams of fat. And also it strikes me as a little bit like Biggest Loser-ish, because it's like, yeah, if you're restricting calories, period, for 3 months, you're going to lose weight. But if you're restricting them in a way, like you said, that isn't sustainable, like, are you paying attention to these people 3 months after their 3-month program with you? Have they gained all the weight back? Or are they like, deficient in a bunch of micronutrients because they're eating no fat? And and it's easy to feed people just like empty carbs and you say you're eating a lot, but like, are you eating well? And yeah, that's a whole thing. And then the Instagram world of like seeing these ripped bodybuilders who are like, donuts for breakfast if it fits your macros, and it's like, whatever. I mean, I don't judge people who eat junk. Like, one of the interesting things about working for Paleo Magazine is that I actually have, to my knowledge, no real food sensitivities. Like, I can eat gluten. Like, it doesn't make me feel great, and I feel kind of bloated and fat if I eat a lot of it, but I can totally eat it. And I've done like DNA testing that shows that I have the whatever it is that lets me digest milk, dairy, so I can have dairy. Like, I can pretty much eat anything. I choose to eat paleo because I think it's the right thing to do for me and it makes me feel better. But I'll eat a donut every now and then, whatever. But the idea that like people who are just getting into health and fitness go on Instagram and they see these like 4% body fat people like crushing Krispy Kremes because it's like they're fitting it into their macros, like, that's also not probably the right message to be sending to people. I don't know.
No, I completely agree with you. So we're on the same page 100%. I just wanted to pick your brain on it a little bit and see what was going on there. Because just bodybuilding and macros tend to go hand in hand. So I was wondering how you handled that. But one thing I do want to talk about is what you have going on in Boulder. I was just there a few weeks ago.
You were? What were you doing there?
So, funny story. I told you before the podcast that my wife and I are moving. So we're basically just been looking for a place to live. And we've been doing it ever since we got married 7 years ago. And we kind of narrowed it down between Boulder, Colorado and Asheville, North Carolina. And we settled on Asheville, North Carolina. But yeah.
Why did you pick Asheville over Boulder?
Boulder was a little more, so we're in Dallas right now, a suburb of Dallas, should I say. And while Boulder's absolutely awesome, it felt a little bit too close to what we are experiencing. I mean, the weather's 100 times better in the mountains and stuff like that, but it's a little bit too much. Like, it's a suburb of Denver, and then that was the only reason. And Asheville is like on an island by itself in the woods. And we actually, a lot of people wouldn't like that, but that's what we liked about it.
Cool. Yeah, I guess Boulder like literally just got some National Geographic poll like happiest city in America. So I mean, they're obviously doing something right. But
it's a very, very cool town.
Yeah, I can't wait to go. So Paleo Magazine is hosting their first ever Paleo Magazine Expo. It's going to be in Boulder in June. I believe it's the 23rd, 24th, 2018. And we're really, really excited to do it. Because I think we're positioned in a way that we've been part of Paleo FX for a while, and we've attended all of these other things, and we've built up a really kind of great, loyal sort of fan base who respects what we do and what we have to offer. And I think that the location's going to be great. We've got a great venue for it, and it's basically going to be a 2-day health and wellness and fitness expo. There's going to be like a vendor floor with tons of exhibitors, similar to what I talked about, like basically like my product review job. It's like a free for all for everyone to go and see like what's great in healthy supplements and food products and gear and equipment and all that stuff. So that's going to be cool. We've got lots of speakers and kind of interactive sessions and seminars. We've got a few big names already confirmed. Our keynote speakers are going to be Laird Hamilton and Gabrielle Reese, aka like the two hottest, fittest people in the world who happen to be pretty paleo. So that's pretty cool. And then, Mark Sisson, like all the big names.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I mean, we're just really excited I love these events because it's just getting like-minded, inspired, enthusiastic people together and talking and learning from one another and just like having a good time. I always love these events. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. I think it's going to be really good. And the response has been really good so far. I think where we're having it, makes a big difference because it's like a very captive, healthy audience there already in Boulder. So so if people are interested in learning more about it or attending or exhibiting or anything, you can check out the paleomagazineexpo.com, and there's all kinds of information about it on there.
And when was it again?
June 23rd and 24th, this coming June.
Okay, so in 2018?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think I'll put that one on the calendar. That sounds like a lot of fun.
You gotta come. I'm super excited to go to Boulder for the first time. Like it's gonna be great. And we've got there's a couple things I can't really talk about yet, but we've got a couple like potential speakers and or sort of event kind of things that are gonna be a part of the show that are like super, super exciting. So if you follow along with our social media, we'll be like posting stuff as it gets confirmed. But it's gonna be really good.
That's awesome. I definitely will check it out. I've been looking for some more events to go to. Being in Texas, we have always kind of hit up Paleo FX since it's just down in Austin from us. But this one sounds like a lot of fun. I definitely want to check it out.
Awesome.
And I won't be in Texas anymore, so I got to fly anyway. Might as well fly out to this one.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to hop to the quick fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, what's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Man, I've done so many hard workouts. I think one that happened recently, so it's very fresh in my mind, is a 3-day hike along the Bay of Fundy, which is in Nova Scotia, Canada. It was, I just did this over the summer. It was a 55K over 3 days, but it was like some of the most difficult, arduous hiking I have ever experienced. It was like, the path was through like dense forest. The path was about as wide as my feet, all rocks or like sliding gravel. I don't think I took a flat step for 3 days. And it was so steep that I was, climbing on my hands and knees or climbing down, like shimmying down on my butt for like kilometers at a time. And it's so funny because I used to see people with like those hiking sticks and like smirk at them. Like, what do you need those for? I'm like, oh, you actually need them for real hiking. Like this would have really come in handy. It was intense. And it was the first time I'd ever done like, first of all, consecutive days of hiking. So we were camping too, but also with a weighted pack, which makes things, it's a completely different world. Like hiking with your own body weight. Okay. Hiking up like massive hills that go on for miles with like 50 pounds on your back. I mean, it was really like there were times when I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And I didn't really have a choice because the way the path goes, like you basically either have to turn around and go back, which is just as difficult as like getting out, which probably helped me get through it. But it was like the perfect storm of very physically challenging and extremely mentally challenging because it just went on for so long. But I mean, without trying to sound too cliche, like it really, I think it made me like a stronger person. I really learned some things about myself in there. You've got a lot of time over 3 days and 55 kilometers to like think about your life. And I was really grateful. Like even in the midst of the pain, I was grateful that I had the opportunity to do something like that and to challenge myself and to see like what I'm really made of. Right. So it was amazing. I mean, I've done Fran, I've run a marathon, I've done a lot of like hard stuff, but this one was like, I think it really kind of like changed who I was really without being too dramatic.
No, I think that's really cool because I would also challenge anyone listening to this to think if they've realistically ever done anything that's spanned into a multi-day, physical challenge. That's very, very rare. And I mean, unless you have some sort of military background, that's a very rare experience to come by. And you'll definitely learn a lot about yourself carrying a heavy pack over the course of 3 days. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, it was not. It's almost one of those things too, where I'm like, I don't think I'd ever want to do it again. Like, I wouldn't say it was fun per se, but I'm glad I did it. I will say that.
The most fun you never want to have again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
I mean, I think just in general terms, it plays on what we were just talking about. I think that in general, and this is, again, speaking generally to a population of people who are very fortunate, right? Like if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in like health and fitness, you're probably a pretty fortunate person who has their life generally pretty sorted out, right? So our lives are very easy. Hopefully we all have like jobs, we make enough money to survive, we can eat, we have a comfortable home, like our lives can be very, very easy. And I think we like to tell ourselves that these tough workouts we do, and, we go on these hikes and like, we're challenging ourselves and trying to, but if we love to do those things and we want to do them and they make us feel good all the time, I mean, is that really challenging yourself? I think it's really a tough thing to incorporate stuff in your life that makes you really scared and really uncomfortable and really, really challenges what you think you're capable of. And so this was something that in retrospect was absolutely one of those challenges for me. I think that I didn't even know it was going to be that difficult. And if I did know, I don't know if I would have done it, which really, again, that says something. That says something about how willing I am to really put myself out there. So I think spending some time with yourself and thinking, when was the last time I really did something that challenged me, that scared me, that made me think like, can I do this? Am I capable of it? And think about what some of those things are that you could do that would make you, that would be hard, but that you would find rewarding and that would teach you something about yourself and that would make you a better person. And spending some time really, really with that and thinking about it and then trying to do it and trying to make that a semi-regular thing in your life, because it would be easy for you to just kind of float through the rest of your life, but you're not going to learn that way.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I
Thanks.
think, that's something I've been focused on lately. Something you hit on there is just, if you love to do something, even though it might be hard for everyone else, is that really still pushing you,
Exactly.
And so, something that, like, I'm a terrible artist and can get frustrated when I try to draw things. Maybe I should try and draw more things, and that could be my mental toughness activity for the day. There's a lot of different ways to stretch yourself. So I think that's very important note.
Yep.
All right, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I mean, I think people underestimate the power of your own body as a piece of equipment. Honestly, I think that body weight movements like push-ups, sprints, burpees, lunges, pull-ups, handstands, like all of that, you can go outside into a park and turn that into a difficult workout regardless of your fitness level. You could be an Olympian or a couch potato and mix those things in some capacity and work very hard. So, I mean, really, really all you need is your own body, which means no excuses. But if I wanted to give kind of a cop-out answer, I would say definitely a barbell. Because you can squat, deadlift, press, bench, and do any number of variations of that forever and be super strong and fit and well-rounded and never get bored. So I guess your body first and then a barbell.
Awesome. Love them both. All right. What is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? And this is 100% open-ended.
Yeah, this is obviously a very subjective question, right? Because better human is kind of a scary term anyway. But I mean, I guess I would say just gratitude. And that's probably a very obvious answer to a lot of people, but it's something that I've been really working on. And again, this kind of goes back to the mental toughness and the awareness of your life and what you should be grateful for and what you should work for. Because it's so easy for people. It's really like ingrained in our human nature to be caught up in negativity and to like focus on the negative stuff and forget how many good things we have going for us at any particular moment. Like whenever anything goes wrong, to consider how many things are going right and are consistently going right. It's harder to do, but it completely changes your outlook on life, right? Like you can watch the news and think the world is a terrible place and then not look around at the kindness and awesomeness that's happening all around you. And I think bottom line, there are so many things in the world that we can't control and we can't change, but you can always control your response to what's going on in the world around you. And you can always control your own actions. So if we try not to put that negativity out in the world and try to put the positivity out instead and spend more time focusing on the things that are good rather than the things that are bad, I think that you're going to make your life better on a micro level and make other people's lives better on a micro level. And every little bit like that counts. You have a million choices every day. So try to choose the positive when you can. That's going to make a difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, that's like, I'm speaking, like I've got it figured out. Like listen, I'm like in New York, like freaking out because the person in front of me is walking too slow and the subway's late. And like, I totally have this challenge myself. So it's like speaking it is helping me kind of practice what I preach too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the more people I interview and talk to, no one really has it figured out, but we all have at least an idea of what we should be doing, and we're all human, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we've mentioned a few different resources and everything, but so we can kind of like consolidate it for people right here, and we can put it in the show notes. What's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Cool. Yeah. So you can learn more about the magazine at paleomagonline.com. And they're on social media across all channels at Paleo Magazine. And then there's the paleomagazineexpo.com for the expo. But the best way to get in touch with me personally is Instagram. I'm pretty active on there at the Muscle Maven. So yeah, if you want to chat with me or learn more about the podcast or my coaching or anything that I've got going on, you can say hi to me on Instagram.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Jared. It was fun.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.